Yeah.
Let's go back to your conversion a little bit. Now, you're French-Canadian by birth.
Oh, yes.
And during the World War II, you were in the Navy.
Yeah.
Now, just coming out of the Navy, some things happened where you got drawn into not passive, but outright demonic association, worship, and the spiritualistic movement. Tell us a little about that so folks know where you've come from.
Coming out of the Merchant Navy, I discovered there was thousands of enlisted men that were looking for jobs if they were no longer in service. And to get jobs were in Montreal was kind of difficult. And I took a job to get me making a living at the Windsor Bowling Alleys and Billiards in West St. Catherine Street, which is the main street of Montreal. And I was assistant to the manager of the billiard room. That's where all the wealthy people, play billiard. And so it turned out to be that one evening about 6 o'clock, this fellow come walking in there and said, "Hey, Marno." I turn around and look at him. He says, "You're alive." I said, "Of course I'm alive." "Yeah, I heard that you were torpedoed in the North Atlantic and that you died."
You've had this problem all your life, haven't you? People thinking you're dead.
People misunderstand me. Yeah, he said, "Man, nice to see you," and shook my hand, and he said, "Why don't you have dinner with me tonight? I got a lot of nice, interesting things to tell you, man. Wow, my life is filled with well-being." I said, "What did you do? Inherit a few $1 million?" No, it's better than that. Better than that. Tell you that it might as well. So I asked my boss, could I take the evening off? And it was like on Wednesday evening, there wasn't too many people there. Yeah, he said, "We can't take it off." So we're sitting, eating our meal, and he says, "Man," he says, "let me tell you, I have become member of a society who communicate with the spirits of the dead. How would you like to talk to the spirit of your dead mother?" See, my mother died when I was 12 years old. I said, "I wouldn't be interested at all." "Hey, man," he says, "I talked to my dad." He says, "The things that he's doing is fabulous. The spirits of our departed loved ones are interested in our well-being here in this land, and they want to help you. They want to be with you. They want to help you." So he told me, "Well, why don't you come to a seance with me next Saturday night?" And I said, "No, I'm not interested really, to be honest with you." And I tried to change the subject, but he wouldn't change the subject. He says, "No, look," he says, "you're chicken. I can tell." He says, "I knew more when he was afraid of nothing, You painted the 70-foot main mast on the ship." He said, "Nobody else wanted to go out there." And he said, "Now," he said, "you're chicken. Or are you going to come with me Saturday night?" I said, "I'll go with you."
So a number of fascinating things happened at these seances, but finally you actually got to the place where at one point things were flying around the room and you were having demons and spirits were speaking to the group and making promises. And
I'm going to tell you a very short little story here. We go to one of these seances one Saturday evening, and there was a guest exorcist, whatever you want to call him, medium, that was speaking there. And my friend says, "Hey, by the way, this big, great man, the band leader, famous band leader, is going to be there with his wife." I said, "Really?" "Oh boy, I like to meet him." So, okay. After we're sitting there, he says, "How long have you guys been involved in sorcery?" I said, "What?" "Yeah," he said, "How long have you guys been involved in sorcery?" He said, "The spirits, the supposed spirits of the dead, they're not the spirits of the dead. They're demon spirits. And they're deceiving everybody. And they're of the lowest ranking of Satan's angels." And he goes on telling us a little bit more, and he invites us to one of their meetings for the following week, for the Wednesday evening, and the following evening. But by the time we left there, he was so lit that I said to myself, "This guy will never pick us up, to go to this meeting." But sure enough, Wednesday evening, he gave us a ring, my friend lived about 2 blocks away from where I lived. But he picked us up, brought over there, and introduced us to the members of the secret society. And I was very amazed because of the fact that they were all professionals, merchants, business people of great capacities, wealthy people, And there was a number of medical doctors and attorneys and people like that.
Now,
They
at this
were
point, you realized
special
this
interest.
society, they were not just mediums doing seances. You knew that this was the underworld.
They had beautiful paintings, life-size, of angels that had appeared, Satan's angels, dressed in different garment of different ages, and they had materialized. First, they had materialized in those forms, then they were photographed, and then they made the paintings of them. And when I visited the worship room of the gods, I was amazed to see there was over 100 of those beautiful paintings all around the worship room of the gods. And they were all Satan's top-notch spirit counselors.
So they had these life-size paintings of demons that had once appeared,
Right,
and they
beautiful
made
angels.
paintings out of them.
We were so amazed, my friend and I, we couldn't believe it. That, having been born and raised a Catholic, and you think of the devil, being in the middle of the earth and fire, covered with soot, with, they look terrible. And then you find out that, the great conflict that started in the courts of heaven.
And the demons are beautiful.
And the angels, Satan's angels, are beautiful beings, bright, beautiful beings. The high priest told us, my friend and I, that the great master would very much like to have us initiated into the society on the 31st of October at their resort in the Laurentian Mountains, north of Montreal, north of Saint-Agathe. And that, he wasn't able to tell us what the great master wanted us to do as a career, but that it was going to be a tremendous, important work that the two of us were going to have to do. Well, my friend says, well, you wanted to be initiated anytime. But I said to the priest, at that time, I didn't know very much. I said, my reverend, I call the guy the reverend. I understand how the great master may want us to be initiated now, but somehow I don't feel that I want to be initiated this time. What about maybe like in the spring of the year or something like that? He said, well, I'll tell you what, I don't know. He says, you don't want to buck the good master, the high master, because the great master, because he says it's very bad. So he said,
And
look,
the great master is who?
Satan.
Okay, just want to clarify that. The great master is Satan,
But
is offering
they
these
still
special
refer to him
gifts.
as the great master or Lucifer.
Or Lucifer, okay.
We don't call him Satan. There are very few references, but very few. He said, look, I'm going to do something for you guys, especially for you, Roger. I'm going to pray to the great master that he give you a gift. What kind would you like? And give 3 or 4 or 5 and choose, and whatever you choose, it says will be yours. And I said, well, it'd be mighty nice if I had the gift of clairvoyance, where I could see,
Clairvoyance, yeah.
See at the bouquets, you play the horses, you go to the bouquets and you see all the name of the horses and the tracks, Belmont, or whatever they're running, you see, and to know which was going to be the winner. I said, that'd be great, it could make me some nice money. He said,
That would probably work with the stock market too then.
yeah, it would probably work with anything, But he said, that's yours, you got it. And sure enough, just a little bit later, I had a dream. And I dreamed that I went to the bookie and on a Saturday morning, and I saw the calendar date and everything, and I saw all the horses running at 3 different races, and the winner was the one that shone.
It was shiny.
Shiny. And that was one there. He was 21 to 1. This horse. It was so bad, the possibility of winning was so poor that he was paying 21 to 1. In other words, if you put $1 down, you get 21, see, if he wins. Well, that was a shining one. I said, boy. Then I said, this other one, you look good. So I said to myself, well, in those days, money was
Scarce.
Scarce. So I said, well, I'm going to put $2 on this guy. So I put $2 on it, and then he wins. That was first. Then I put $20 on the 21 to 1 horse, and that won. And then that got the attention of everybody. Everybody said, I can't believe it. Some guy were knocking their fist on the counter, because they said this horse is totally worthless. He shouldn't have been in this race, and then he wins. Okay. So the pressure mounted to be initiated. And this was in October. And I came home on a Wednesday evening, and after the high priest had put a lot of pressure on me, and I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting, laying in bed there, and now this was a prayer, mighty beautiful prayer, very short, and I never thought I was praying. But here, listen to this. I said, if there's a God in heaven who cares for me, see that? Who cares for me, help me. I don't know how long I stayed awake after that, but the next thing I knew, my alarm clock rang, and I got up and went to work. Something? Now, something beautiful happened. I am working in the embroidery factory, and I was working on my machine, and the 3 o'clock coffee break came in the afternoon, and I went outside to have my smoke, and one of the bosses, you see, they were Jewish, two owners. One of the bosses said, hey, Roger, when you come up, come into my office, I want to talk to you. I said, okay. So I came back up, and he said, come on in, close the door. I said to myself, what in the world is going on? He never closes his door unless he wants to fire somebody. You know, I learned that by observation, see. I said, well, what's the problem? Well, there's no problem. But he says, he says, you could call it problem probably. You know, you notice this guy that was here this morning that I showed around the shop? I said, yeah. I said, the black guy? Yeah. Well, he's going to start working here next Monday. And he's a Christian, but he keeps the Jewish Sabbath. What do you mean he keeps the Jewish Sabbath? Yeah, he keeps the biblical Sabbath of creation, that God created the world, the earth, and blesses the seventh day and all of that. He keeps it like the Jews do, like the Orthodox Jews do. So I said, so what? I want you to find out what denomination he belongs to. It's haunting me, this thing. He says, I could hardly sleep last night, that I had to find out what denomination this guy belongs to. But he said, I'm not going to start doing this kind of work. He says, you're my friend, give me a favor, find out for me. I said, sure, no problem. So we had a good hour of talking. And in the afternoon, about 2 o'clock, the spirit started to oppress me. It was in the month of October. The windows were open about maybe 4 or 5 inches in the plane. It was cold, cool, and I was starting to perspire. So I took my shirt and unbuttoned it and rolled my sleeves, and I was still perspiring more. So I went to the men's room, and once I locked the door, I was being grabbed and choked. And the perspiration was so great that I stood over the toilet, and the water was just pouring down there. And I said to myself, unless Cyril's God help me, the spirits are going to do me in. And instantly, just...
So you knew that you had demonic powers that were trying to choke you right then.
Yeah. So at 3 o'clock, no, it was at 5 o'clock, I told him, I says, what streetcar do you take? Where do you take the streetcar? He says, well, I'll take it about 2 blocks down here. I said, I want to walk with you. Listen, if I went over to your house, could you show me in the Bible, you know, the things that you were telling me today about your religious convictions? Oh, yeah, he says, I'd be glad to. I said, yeah, okay. He said, what about next weekend? Oh, no. I said, I mean, this evening. This evening? Oh, it's not a good evening. He says, I have a guy that's supposed to come and buy my jazz records. And he says, no, I've already promised him, put him off 2 or 3 times. I said, well, I'm sorry, but I surely would have liked to study the Bible with you. He said, what about tomorrow night or the night after? I'll be too late, my friend. Too late. Forever too late. And he said, okay, you be at our home at 7 o'clock, and we'll be waiting for you. I was as sure that the sun's going to rise tomorrow, that the spirits were going to do me in that night. The high priest had told us about a couple of accidents that had happened to some of their members that had decided that, well, no, this is really not for me. One guy, you know, he told the high priest, I think I'm going to ask you to excuse me from this fellowship. He says, it's not for me. The guy says, wait a minute, don't you back off on the great master, because it'll cost you your life. And he said, that'll be the day. He went away, and he left that day from work, and the spirit counselor, the angel, appeared to the high priest and said, the man is going to die in a car accident, is down the road, and he's going to be decapitated. And that's exactly what happened to him. So, I knew very well that the spirits were already well aware of what I was doing, and I was not going to be around very long.
And you knew that, or at least you believed, that if you went ahead and tried to leave this satanic society, that you were done in
for
for.
life, So, that night I said goodbye, didn't expect to see them again. But the next morning I woke up, and I was expecting some kind of an accident on the way home. But I woke up the next morning, man, life, it's beautiful, I'm alive. And I had, of course, gotten them to commit themselves to more Bible studies for Tuesday, you see, at least once.
That was the next day?
Next day. So the next day when I was there, we had 4 more. You see? Now I was sure that I was not going to see them on Wednesday. I shook hands with them and said, well, if I'm still alive, I'll be here tomorrow night for Bible study number 489. See, we had 28 Bible studies in 1 week, 7 days. So what happened here...
I'm getting ideas for a new evangelistic series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What happened here is that by Tuesday night, I was so sure that I would not live any longer, that I figured, well, it was nice to learn the truth about the Creator. Because the high priest always talk, you see, they don't refer to God as God. They always refer to God as the Creator. Always as the Creator. The great God is Lucifer, the great master. Yeah. So don't give glory to God for anything except that He's the Creator. And I said, well, that's the thing. Now, Wednesday when I came back from those Bible studies, I was so thrilled in my soul. I didn't know how to pray. But there was in my being an elation of such happiness toward the God who cared, you see? I didn't know His name, but I knew that He's the God that cared. Because I said, if there's a God in heaven who cares for me, help me. So, we had 2 more Bible studies, and those Bible studies did for me marvels. By the time that the 2 other Bible studies were finished, we had 4 more, by the way, 2 more after that. But now, I knew within myself that I had a great master also, and that he was way better than the great master that I had been serving for a while.
Amen.
And also, I became very daring. I determined right there and then that with the grace of the Lord Jesus and the power of God and His Holy Spirit, I didn't have to worry about the high priest and about the bullets and about decapitations through accidents. So, this is about all I'm going to say about this part of it. On Wednesday night, when I got home, I had a letter a note on my door from my friend. On Thursday night and Friday night also. Because we were finishing our studies at 11 o'clock and it took me an hour to get home on the streetcar, which meant that I got home at 12 o'clock. He had been around to try to talk to me, but he couldn't get a hold of me. Didn't know where I was. But on Saturday night, he told me, he said, the high priest has informed me that the spirits are going to destroy you, and there's a big price already been set on your head. You see, I need to talk to you. Please call me. And I decided there was a payphone in the hallway downstairs in the foyer. But I decided I'd better go to a restaurant down the street so I can talk privately. And I called him up and he told me, he says, I got to talk to you, man. He said, your life is worth nothing. He says, you're not going to live. He says, if you don't come back to the great master, he says, tomorrow, this will be your last chance. And he came to visit me and he tried to convince me in 2 hours' time that I should come back to the society. I said, no, I'd be a loser. What do you mean you'd be a loser? He says, you'd be wealthy, you'd be famous, and you'd be doing a tremendous work that could benefit mankind. I said, I know exactly how Satan benefits mankind. And beside that, I said, I got a new master. And he's super wealthy. And besides that, not only does he promise me gold and silver in abundance after the resurrection, the first resurrection,
Amen.
but he promises me 100 million years of living plus. And he's told me that this is going to be just the beginning of the good life.
Amen.
So my friend looked at me and he says, you're either crazy or you're telling an awesome truth. And I said, I'm not crazy, but I'm telling you an awesome truth.
In the battle between good and evil angels, in two of your books, Trip into the Supernatural and Beware of Angels, we can see that evil angels often masquerade as good angels.
Right.
Paul tells us Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. How can we be safe in determining or distinguishing the difference?
Well, I tell you what, anytime that people talk to you and you can detect the fact that they have left people, angels, or strong feelings, they have been led away from it, thus saith the Lord, regardless how little it thus saith of the Lord may be. When it's not in perfect harmony with the Bible, there is danger there. Mm-hmm. And these people, like this group of 19 people up in Oregon, between 1983 to 88, that's right, they had prayed to see angels. They felt, like many of the evangelical churches in this country, that the time had arrived to petition God and, hey, let's ask him to do something for us. To send his angels to come and talk with us like the people did in the Bible times, you see. And the angel that came and says, we come from the throne of God. Beautiful, glorious angels. And David, well, there was a guy in there and his wife, they entertained in their homes over 100 angels. I think it was 161 angels in 4.5 years.
Appeared to them.
Appeared to them, entered them in their home, talked with them. Angels came back.
But these weren't good angels.
That's right. But you see, what these people did, the angels gave them signs that they were not the angels of God, not wanting to. But here's something. One lady, they were a group there, about 15 people, and this person by the name of Lynn was talking about an angel that had appeared to her, and she asked different questions to the angel that the people wanted to have answers to. Mm-hmm. And one question, this lady said, ask the messenger angel, how would I have to go about, what would I have to do to talk to my, companion angel, or
guardian angel.
And the angel said, I can't help you with that, because we, messenger angels, are of a higher
sphere
than the guardian angels, and we never talk to one another. Can you imagine that?
They don't have good relationships, I guess.
They don't have good relationship at all. Now these people should have said, wait a minute.
That should have been a red flag.
That's right. I cannot believe that these angels, that glorify God, behave toward one another like that. So that was one of the little errors, thus saith the Lord, and they brought a number of others, and I wish I would have had more time, and the publisher would let me have more.
One of the common errors that I think you allude to is they start out acting like they believe the Bible, but little by little they start saying, well, that's not completely accurate, that doesn't mean what it says, and they start to discard and pull away from the scriptures.
That's right.
There seems to be, and again I'm paraphrasing here, there seems to be an increased interest in angels in the world today, in the supernatural. And we believe the devil is paving the way for a major deception. You were told some things when you were involved in spiritualism where because they thought that you were in for life, they revealed certain parts of the plans about how to deceive the world and how to corrupt even God's commandment-keeping people, and pave the way for the world, even the church, to accept fallen angels who are impersonating spirits of the dead. Is that happening now? And what was it that you learned back then?
It is happening now. And it's happening in big ways. And the idea of the angels, see, there's a drive right now to make people interested in angels. Doesn't care what kind of an angel. You've seen it in newsstands, the checkout counters, there's all kinds of stuff there.
Magazines, TV programs,
about,
everything.
Experience with angels. And I've been given a couple of books that were given to me. And what do you think of this? And I'll tell you what, I don't read more than a dozen pages that I find where there is a super deception being slowly, gradually, imperceptibly brought into the lives of people. And they think as the old devil would want them to think, feel as they feel, and then you see them act with it. And, the devil wants them to act.
We have several questions here, and if incidentally, Roger's just touching on some of these things. The books are available out there in the hall or out in the youth room later, and you'll find more detail. In summary, that book on angels, there was a group of very sincere Seventh-day Adventist people that step by step began to get involved in Spiritism until they were listening to devils to the point where they committed murder, and they're in jail now. 2 of them are. And that sort of thing, I think, is going to be more common as time progresses. We've already seen what happens with leaders like Jim Jones and David Koresh and others who tell people step by step. They all started out reading the Bible.
Yep.
Jim Jones started out reading the Bible, and when they went down to Guyana, we baptized a girl who escaped just before they all committed suicide. The Bible was in the outhouse, and I won't tell you what they used it for. But they started out reading the Bible, and little by little, they get away. And that still happens today.
And then there was one lady that had been talking almost continually before the seance started, and she didn't believe in the dead appearing and all of this and all that. And she said, well, I would have to see my dead sister, she says, to believe it. So while the seance was going, one man said, I would like to talk to my friend that died 6 months ago, but I don't want him to appear. Just want to talk to him, because he says, I don't trust you talking to my friend for me. So the medium says, let me inquire of the spirit. Yeah, the spirit will talk with you. And that big masculine voice was heard in the place. It says, hi, Frank. It's nice of you to ask for me to talk with you. And they had a little chat. And after it was over, Frank says, this is the greatest thing on earth, to be able to talk with the spirits of the dead. Then the medium said, we have a very special surprise tonight for you people. A spirit will manifest itself openly here in a few minutes. And it's like a big gust of wind hit the building. And right through the wall. Now, the lights weren't terribly bright, but they were like living room lights. A couple of floor lamps and maybe some of these. And that translucent being seemed to come right out of the wall.
How did you feel right at that moment?
It's almost like my heart stopped a little bit. Very weird feeling. So it was a lady in a beautiful evening gown, swirling. And she said to Mary, my dear sister, you are so wonderful to have asked for me. And Mary fainted and fell right off her chair on the floor. And a couple of guys jumped up and picked her up, and spirit gone. And that was the beginning of it.
That's how you got into it.
Yeah, that's the way we got into it. After a while, you see, there's something interesting about the human mind. You can adjust to an awful lot of stuff. You can adjust to a lot of things that would terrify you to begin with. After a while, they become common and ordinary.
So you mean contact with the supernatural can become commonplace and ordinary and doesn't bother anybody?
Yeah.
In other words, the more that you do it, you're not uncomfortable.
That's right.
It's just not an uneasy feeling.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about it?
Then I got into a secret society that worshiped the spirits, you see.
Well, okay, now how is that different from the seance, Roger?
It happens that the seance are not involving in many ways. But when you get into a secret society of spirit worshippers, then, and especially when you're invited there by the direction of the higher-ups in the spirit world, you never get out of there alive. And this is exactly what my friend and I were up against. We didn't know anything about it. As we talk, the band leader says, "How long have you fellows been involved with sorcery?" And it shocked us a little bit. And I said, "Exactly what do you mean?" "Well," he said, "you know, what you people are doing, talking to the supposed spirits of the dead." He says, this is silly."
And this man had been at the seance with you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he's telling you that it's silly what you've just done.
Because see, my wife, he says, goes to these seances because she gets comfort and she gets something good out of it, good feeling out of it. And she lives for what the spirits, are going to see that the future is going to be like. To me, he says, I can't bother with this stuff. He says, I want power. I go right to the source of power. And he says, how do you think that I became famous the way that I am? Well, I said, you must have had some good luck. Well, he says, there's no such thing as good luck. He says, there's either some power working for you somewhere, or you don't get ahead in this world. Not in my type of occupation. So it went from there. We got talking about spirit worship.
Did it intrigue you? Or did it make you want to find out more about what exactly he was talking about?
Yeah. So he said the supposed spirits of the dead that you're talking with are demon spirits. They're fallen angels. They're beautiful beings.
Just set it out, just like that.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't make you uneasy when he said they were...
Well, it shocked you a little bit, something that you first hear mentioned to you. He said, you guys have got a great future ahead of you. Because we've been told, the high priest of our society, secret society, has been told that the master has very special plans for you too.
Now, what did he mean by the master?
Satan. And we were interested to hear more about it. And he told us, he says, look, we worship spirits. We worship Lucifer and all his angels. They're just as beautiful as they did before they were cast out of heaven. He says there was a misunderstanding in the whole thing. He says among the inhabitants of the galaxies. And he says our master was misunderstood. And God did not bear with him like he does with people that make mistakes today. So we're in a warfare, good against evil. And we happen to be the evil ones, but we're not that bad. He says, I look at this business between the forces of good and evil. He says, you believe in one person believes in God, and everyone believes in Lucifer. It's like politics.
So the great controversy is real. And you've heard someone talk about it that's on the other side.
And to these people, they are sold to the fact that Christ will not return to this planet with power and great glory. He's going to abdicate all claims to the planet. Because the high priest once said that Christ will abdicate all claim to the planet because he knows that it is lawfully and rightfully Satan's. And at that time he says, Lucifer, you mentioned Lucifer a lot of times, but he mentions Satan also. He says, the master, usually they like to talk about the master will resurrect his people from the graves.
So what were your impressions the first time you went down into that worship room?
Well, it was, we'd been there maybe a half a dozen times, and the high priest told us after the meeting was over he wanted to talk to us, my friend and I. So after the most people had left, he says, the master of my life has revealed to me that it is time for you people to become acquainted with the worship room of the gods. Well, we started to move toward a beautiful grand staircase. Beautiful. The banister was huge. It was massive, and the wrought iron work that they had done it was super. The beautiful decorations on the walls, the chandelier on the first landing. See, that was the first landing. About you go down about 8 or 10 steps, and then you had the first landing. It was huge and beautiful. The light arrangement was the nicest I had ever seen in my life. When we got into this sanctuary area, it wasn't very brightly lit, but everything was well magnified. The beauty of certain things, you know, like a lot of the things were gold plated or gold trims. See, the little altars where they had the spirits that had materialized. They photographed them, and then they had paintings made of them. And there was probably about maybe 100 of those around the place.
Sort of like a shrine.
Yeah, and underneath there was a little altar where you have incense and things that they would use in their prayer sessions and things like that, devotions to certain spirits. And some of the objects in there, the priest said, were solid gold. It was a unique experience to see that.
So how did you feel when you walked into that room?
I felt that these people had power, and they had a lot of it.
Did that attract you?
Yes and no.
You had mixed feelings about it?
I had mixed feelings about it, yeah. Because to a certain extent, things looked so good and sounded so good to us. But you see, I'd been brought up in a Christian home where my parents had told us we were 8 children in the family, and especially the older ones, you know. My dad says, well, you know, if you get involved in wrongdoing, you're going to have to pay the price. There's always a cost for everything in this world. So this thought kept creeping into my mind. Just how far you go with these spirits before we start paying the price. See?
So it made you just a little bit nervous.
Oh, yes.
But yet you kept going back.
Oh, there was no way out. Because that's what we're told.
You knew at that time.
Yeah.
So you were moving forward more on fear.
More on fear, yes. Because the high priest said that the master had special plans for us in our lives. And that no one ever went into this society unless they were invited by the spirits. See, so that was made very clear. And he also expressed to us the danger, explained to us the danger of going against the will of the spirits. And he mentioned about this one man and his wife that live in a fireproof building in Montreal. The place burned right down with him in it. Mm-hmm. He was one of their members that had decided that, well, he wanted to think things over. He was not going to get initiated at a time that the spirit said he would like him to be initiated into the society.
So in reality, Roger, you were chosen by high-powered demon spirits to be a part of their human, special, privileged group.
You see, these people in Montreal, the society, like the priest mentioned, there's thousands of spirit worshippers in only different societies of spirit worshippers in this world. But he says we are the elite. We know the real truth about the master and his angels. And they're not hideous-looking beings. They are gorgeous creatures. And from the paintings that they had on the wall of the walls of that worship room, they were unique beings. Especially there was a painting full full-length painting of the fallen Lucifer above his altar, and that was very fascinating because he looked like a man of great intellect, high forehead, the way that he looked with his eyes, the way he had the eyes looking. It gave you a depth of perception of somebody that's very, very knowledgeable and
Powerful.
powerful, yeah.